Hello and welcome to the Champion Sports Network. You're tuning in to the first edition, James, of the Sports Hub.
Yeah.
It's a new show from the Champion Sports Network. We've been waiting all year for this because it's the end of football season for the NAIA.
But the best part of the year, because we're now here at the FCS playoffs and
Football Championship Series of 2019, and we are so excited that we get to talk about this because that's just what we love to do. We're very passionate about our sports, especially NAIA football, and we are part of some of the chatter that's going on in the internet about a lot of the teams that have made the Final 16. So if you don't know and you're tuning in and you're a typical average NAIA sports fan, then you may not know how the football setup works for the tournament. So we'll describe it to you real quickly. The Football Championship Series is determined out of the top 20 teams that are ranked, and that ranking comes from raters or polls, a coach's poll, and they vote on that, and each team gets a certain number of vote count, and that list in order. Technically, it's a top 25 coaches poll, but they take from the top 20. So if you make the top 20 and you are in the at-large category, then there are some things you have to pay attention to make it. But if you win your conference championship for the season, you will actually get an automatic berth.
An automatic qualifier even applies if your conference has multiple divisions or however it's broken down.
We'll get into that real quick. There are 11 conferences, and there are 3 conferences that have multiple divisions. There are, talk about the MidSouth. The MidSouth has 3 divisions. So each one of those divisions actually send one. Is that correct?
Yep. Appalachian sent Reinhardt, Bluegrass sent Lindsey Wilson, and the Sun sent Kaiser.
There you go. And we're going to break these down for you as we go on. That's the whole purpose of what we're doing this launch show of the Sports Hub, is to break down what's going to happen in the Football Championship Series for the NAIA 2019. So you've tuned into the Champion Sports Network. We're in Studio A. And Studio A is the home for Champions Sports Network football. And over in Studio B would be the volleyball. And that postseason is about to get started up and rolling. And those guys over there will be doing that. But James and I will be talking football today. And if you are interested in football, you know, we're broadcasting on what platforms?
Oh, right now we're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're all over the place.
Twitter, So Twitter's a hot spot for what I think is sports. It's a driver sports. So retweet if you see one of our tweets. Retweet the video. Let people know that we're talking. So I'm kind of buying time right now to see if we can get a little better audience, because what we would like you to do is engage with us and respond. Give us your picks. As we go through these, we're going to break them down a little bit by a little bit in some statistical categories, and we are going to have a bit of a war, and we're going to fight for who we think should win. But first, we were talking about if you're in the top 20, you are going to get considered. If you've won your conference or division, you'll get an automatic berth, and then there's 4 at-large berths, I guess you could say, that would go to, which is going to put multiple teams from a division or a single conference in. And that means that there are at least 4 teams in the top 20 that got snubbed. Did I do my math right?
Let's see, we got
Southeastern. 16.
Well, I'm trying to think. I think it may only be 3.
Yeah, I think the math works on that. So 4 teams that may considered that were on the bubble, but for one reason or another, they were right there. They had a great record. And one of those teams, I would just call out Southeastern University, the Fire, down in Lakeland, Florida.
And they were ranked 14th at the end, the final poll, 14th.
So they were ranked high. They had an excellent season.
They did.
Took a loss to Kaiser, who made it, and obviously because they won the conference. Because
it's their only loss to an undefeated Kaiser team.
What a tough way to go. But one team that had one loss that made it, but because they were in a different division in the same conference, made it, and that was Reinhardt University. And Southeastern, very deserving, but for the second year in a row, kind of gets snubbed. Just kind of the way it works. And I'm sure they feel bad about it, but they had an excellent season. If you get a chance to go watch some of their film.
And they've been on the rise every year. They've gotten progressively better. They're literally kind of the new kid on the block, but
fairly. Not compared to Kaiser and some of these other new two-year programs.
There's so many two-year programs this year we'll get into, but what a great season for the Fire. 14th, one loss to Kaiser.
Who else got snubbed?
Right. Siena Heights down there at 20th. They beat St. Francis, who was in this playoff.
I really like Siena Heights. I watched a couple of their games, and
they just got stuck in that Mid-States Mid-East.
Again,
it's just
multiple divisions.
That one's packed.
And such a good conference with strong divisions. And good team. So several really good teams worthy of being in this football championship series did not make it. And hats off to you guys. We feel your pain.
Another team that missed it, Benedictine. They went 8-3, and they were in the championship game last year. This year,
runner-up.
They had some injuries. And
that was a great game.
That was a great game.
Morningside, Benedictine.
It was a comeback win for Morningside. So Benedictine they were a few minutes away from claiming their first national championship. But 8-3 this year. The injuries, they just couldn't overcome them. 3 losses. It was just hard to put them in over some of these 2-loss teams, specifically from the Mid-States, Mid-East. Do you like that choice to keep them out?
I can't say that I like it. It's just the way it works, and it's hard to explain a lot of times, especially when you're trying to break it down. This is the NAIA that we're talking about, so there's not a ton of controversy that can be surrounded, like say the Division I, the NCAA type debates that go back and forth. It is a lot of times it's just how many votes that you get and where you finish at in the polls. So and I guess it is that way. The other side, there's not enough media, and that's one reason Champion Sports Network has come to life, is because we want to bring and have a media outlet source for those that love small college sports, and especially in this case football, a place to talk about it, learn about it. And we have a good team of pundits, reporters, and guys that just absolutely love the game. And we also rub elbows with guys like NAIA F-ball, the walking encyclopedia of
John Cooper, man. He knows everything.
He's ridiculous. I saw he and Joey from Midwest Sports talking, and I was I just found myself staring as John was talking through some of the historical facts. This guy is absolutely amazing, and I learned so much time. Every time he begins to talk about NAIA football, there is no better resource to get really in-depth knowledge. Follow those guys on Twitter, NAIA F-ball. They're worth a good follow. You will always, they pour their heart into this, and they are a good resource for us here at Champion Sports Network to glean from, not just the knowledge base, but just every Saturday they're on top of it almost every game. So they've been real helpful to us as we've been growing our coverage. Now, and did you have one more team?
I had one more team. Okay. It was an 8-2 Langston team, but let me put an asterisk. That one loss was to a Division I Arkansas Pine Bluff. So I don't want to say it was unfair, but they kind of go into that knowing they're not going to get a win almost more than likely. That's a tough team too.
Okay, you realize that
they're 8-2, but are they kind of 8-1?
The 99% of avid NAIA football followers just threw up on their device as you said that, because Sooner Athletic Conference, number one, used to be Central State's Football League, I believe, and it's unanimously viewed as one of the weakest conference, if not the weakest conference in the nation. And NAIA
it's one of the weakest.
Football just does not have a high opinion of Langston or right now the Sooner Athletic Conference. They've got to earn some respect, and I buy into that. I get you can't just show up and get your doors beat off every time you get in. So Sooner Athletic Conference has a team in it this year, Ottawa, of Arizona, and Langston not Kansas, but Arizona.
Langston played them. But
they
Ottawa
lost.
they basically dismantled Langston. Let's be honest. It really wasn't close.
Langston didn't have an up year. I would say this was for Langston. It was kind of a rebuilding year. They're always going to have a tough defense. Coach Q he's a very tough coach, and he coaches up a tough defense. Offensively, they struggled. I don't think it's really worth at this point getting into those numbers, because we got to really break down the bracket at this point.
Yeah, let's get to the bracket. Let's talk about
I have to disagree with you. Langston did not get snubbed, but the other teams that we have mentioned, I would say it was a bit of a snub, but it's just kind of the way it works.
It's just how it is.
Yeah, and let's just dive right in now.
Which one are we going to talk about
if you guys can see here the graphic that lays out the final 16. So these are the pairings for the final 16 teams. Let's start off with Morningside, the perennial champs, the guys that just do not seem to be able to be beat. I don't know how you can argue. They haven't lost a game in...
I think it's 25-game winning streak now over like 2 years.
In an age. I mean, it's been a long, long time. They don't know what it's like to lose. Yeah. And that in itself goes a long way in competitive sports. Yeah. But they're playing Dickinson State. Yeah. So you look at the numbers and you say, is there any way that Dickinson State could upset this perennial powerhouse? I'll let you lead off.
Dickinson State, okay, for them to do this, now they came in the end season, they're 8-2, but the first game of the year, they really stumbled. They really rebounded after that. What do they have to do to beat Morningside? Well, first thing you've got to do is slow down that Morningside Mustang offense. That offense scores a lot of points, and they score quickly. So really, it's the Dickinson State defense that's going to win it. I don't think that Dickinson State can win just an offensive shootout. All right, I think you put the Blue Hawks against the Mustangs. Blue Hawks defense has to slow down the Mustangs. If not, just it'll be 48-0 in the second quarter. Yeah. I mean, Morningside can score that fast. I really don't know how Dickinson State's going to win this one.
No, they're not.
It's hard to make a case for them.
I give them less than a half a percent.
If you're a Dickinson State fan out there, tell me how they're going to do it.
Not hating you.
No.
It's just it's not when you look at the numbers, and let's go through the numbers real quick. Offensive points per game is almost 20 points difference on average. The production, the offense production is 150 yards difference. I mean, when you're talking about averages, that is quite a difference, and the contrast is not good. The defense, well, you mentioned that the State's defense is strong. It is definitely their strength when they take the field, but even
that's only 29th in the country right now in that yards per game. So it's going to be tough against the top offense. They're the top offense.
Here's the one thing that gets a little bit hidden. Is that Morningside does not have the best strength of schedule.
It's true.
Strength of schedule is out of the 16 is one of the weaker.
It is, yeah.
And
GPAC was strong, but record-wise, and some of those teams at the bottom, they were blowing through them, and it wasn't even close.
I mean, the trainers were playing in the fourth quarter a lot of times, and so I don't know. We have an average win margin. So when you look at our average win margin, make a note. This is not average win margin over all games. So in their case, over all 10 games, that 45.2 is actually the average win margin over teams 500 or better. So you had to have a winning record
against non-losing teams, basically. What's that?
So teams that they played, which weren't that many.
So it takes out the
0-9s
and the 1-8s on the year.
Yeah. So if you look at Morningside, they had 3 games out of 10 games. So 30% of their schedule was actually facing teams with a winning record, and that was Dort comes in at 7-4. They beat them 56-14. Midland was 7-4. Good records, and they beat them 51-29. So they're beating the doors off of these teams that have good records. So that's a very high point. And then they played the undefeated Northwestern, so kind of the rival game that they always end with, and that was a really close game, 37-27. So
that was a very good Northwestern team. I mean, they're here in this playoff.
Yeah, and it's big. That's a really big win for Morningside, and that's hard to say because really it's the only big win that they had this year. But
I think it solidified that defense as being legitimate. They can go up against the weak teams, the strong teams, and they're going to go and put up
for sure
almost 40 points and play well.
And being that Northwestern's kind of got a weak schedule as well.
Yeah, you
got to play who you play, so it's not their fault. But the fact of the case is neither one of those teams have a very high, out of all the 16 teams, have a very high strength of schedule. And but they did to those teams what they were supposed to do, and that was beat the doors off of them. And then they played each other well. So that was a really good game.
I would say on the Dickinson State side, they had 4 games against teams 500 or better.
And I'm looking at my notes. That 45-point margin is wrong. That should be 25 points.
25.
Their average margin of victory was 25 points, which is still amazing over teams with winning records, which was
4 scores.
3 teams that they played. And exactly. 4 scores. Better than
you have to get those extra points, point afters, which are not guarantees.
Dickinson State comes in. Let's look at what they had. Their defense is ranked 17th with points per game holding. So that was a good showing, but only 29th holding in defensive production against the offense. So not a great showing. When you look at the numbers, this just looks like Morningside's going to walk with maybe a 5-score type victory here. And if I was doing spreads, I would definitely put this spread at about 24, 27 points, somewhere in that range. But you can't gamble in NAIA sports, so we're not suggesting that at all. But that's what, if I were to conclude what the final score would be, probably be somewhere 24 to 27 point difference. Dickinson State's got a good defense, so I think they're not going to, I mean, I guess in some cases that would be a blowout, but not necessarily what Morningside is used to blowing out teams with.
And I would say Morningside, I think Dickinson State's good. I just think Morningside's better.
That much better. Yep. And if you look at Dickinson State, they have a plus 24 spread. They faced 5 teams with winning records, but they played a repeat game. So they won against that team twice. I don't know how to look at that to be and factor that in. So, and then they beat a D3 team. We did a little research on that team, and they were a pretty good team. They weren't bad. They finished second in their conference, and I believe that was up in Wisconsin. I can't remember exactly where they were from. UW La Crosse. So I guess maybe I've got the point spread a little high. Let's see.
Well, I want to do that, but then I start thinking, well, let's look at the losses for Dickinson State. That rough loss at the beginning of the season against Rocky Mountain, 23-21. Yep. Rocky Mountain went on. I think they only won 2 games all year. 4. They won 4. Right. So, but 4-7 for Rocky Mountain, a team that won their conference last year. And it looked like it was going to be a great game to start the year. Dickinson State takes the loss, and we go, well, maybe Rocky Mountain's for real this year. And
okay, so your pick on Morningside, Dickinson State, for the record.
Morningside, all the way. I'm putting them by 21. Give it 3 touchdowns.
Okay, and I go.
And you're going to go a little further, I guess.
I go Morningside by 24. All right, so it's on the record. Tweet at us, get engaged on our Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, however you're consuming this. Even maybe we have a Discord channel.
We do.
And you could, I don't know how you could get connected on that because you got to get an invite, right?
Yep, I'll put the link in the chat.
But if you want to be invited to our Discord server, just let us know in Twitter or DM us.
I just added it to the live chat, so jump to that live chat.
I'd like to know what you guys think. Am I that far off base? All right. Let's go down to Marian University. Marian and Reinhardt. This is actually could shape up to be a really good game.
It could.
And I have a little bit of a diatribe, I guess I could lay out there, but I'll let you go first.
Okay. I was just going to say that Marian, man, they look strong this year, 9-0. It's funny, of the teams in here, I think they've played the fewest number of games at 9, but they won convincingly in their 9 games. They beat good teams. They swept through the Mid-States, Mid-East. I believe this is I don't think these teams have ever played each other, Reinhardt and Marian. So this will be a first-time matchup between them.
I don't know. I saw a little chatter out there. I think they have actually met up before.
Oh, well, if they have, let me know. I was trying to look up any kind of history and couldn't find anything. But, man, Marian, let's talk about them a little bit. They're undefeated this season, but they've been undefeated in the regular season 3 out of the last 4 years. This is sustained dominance. Yeah. But this year, especially,
tough conference.
This defense is something to behold.
Arguably the toughest conference and division.
I would, definitely arguably. But one thing you can't argue is the numbers, which is they've surrendered the fewest number of points of any school in the NAIA. I mean, 8 points or something like that, which in college football is just microscopic. I mean, but as defensive coordinators, if you can hold teams to 21 points, you're like, okay, good. They're holding them to 8 points. So they haven't, and their offense is good, but they run the ball a lot, so they're not running up the score like other schools have.
Right.
But this is going to be a very, very solid game. Reinhardt coming in on a 6-game winning streak. They had a tough loss earlier. They had that loss to Division I Kennesaw State, but they rebounded. They came back. They did what they had to do. They won their division, and now they're in with the automatic qualifier. I think they deserve to be in the playoffs, but boy, what a brick wall they have to hit week 1 here, or this first round.
It's true.
Thoughts on this?
Well, yes. Marian, I don't want to give my championship spoiler away just yet. But Marian is definitely sniffing around that game to me. Just depends on how everything gets reseeded. We didn't talk about how that works, but after the first round, second round, they get reseeded. Right. So it's not a traditional tournament layout where you're already in your bracket and you play through your bracket to get to a quarterfinal or a semifinal. So it's going to be interesting to see how these teams get reseeded and matched up against team. So that's the great mystery. It's a bit unorthodox, but I will say that Reinhardt has a uphill battle to even be considered for a win on this, and I think Reinhardt is good. They played Kaiser, which Kaiser is undefeated, a lot like Southeastern, except Reinhardt, and we think Southeastern got snubbed, and they're good, but Reinhardt lost to Kaiser by 2. Yeah. I think it was 14-12.
It was, yeah.
And that was a very winnable game, and we have some sources that spoke in about Reinhardt and what happened in that game. And one of the key offensive linemen got hurt early in that game, and it changed the complexion. But both Kaiser and Reinhardt have lights out kind of lockdown defenses, and so that was a defensive battle. Obviously, you could see that in the score. But Reinhardt says they are gritty. They are real gritty when it comes to defense. That's interesting when you compare them to Marion, because to me, Marion is the most gritty defense in the country in NAIA. So I don't know how you're going to be better than them. You can play as good as they will, but that would still be a little bit of a stretch for Reinhardt, considering some of the numbers. And we can look back and see on the defensive points per game, Marion only allows 8, where
13.1 is pretty good, though. I mean,
13.1 on when you're just laying it out there, you go, okay, not bad at all.
Not at all.
But when you see 8.3, I mean, that's handling your business, James. And then the defensive yards production, they both do very, very well. But on average, if you can hold a team to almost just a solid 200, I mean, nobody's doing anything on you.
Yeah.
And it's not like Marion didn't play anybody.
Yeah, I can see this one almost coming down to special teams. I mean, when
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I mean, field I'm
position
willing to hear the argument to it.
Well, just field position, that the defenses show up to this game, they come ready, prepared, they start holding the offenses to 3 and outs, and it just becomes a game of just a little field position and then one big play. Do you see that?
No, I don't see that. No, I don't see that. But good try. That's a good try. And I think if you're a Reinhardt fan, you're hoping that...
Get in the chat and tell me I'm right.
You're hoping that's the way it will work out. I think Reinhardt's traveling up to Indianapolis. You're in your neck of the woods, just north of Atlanta, and a little town called Circle, Waleska, Georgia. Or Waleska, Georgia. I don't know. Is that right?
It's Waleska.
Yeah, and
not a well-known city, but
it's not a place where they get used to cold weather. Indianapolis is kind of cold right now.
It is. Yeah.
I think weather could be something of a factor.
Marion. It should definitely favor.
Definitely. But if you just look at gameplay, Marion's going to wipe the floor with Reinhardt, and I'm not taking, my heart is not necessarily making this decision just based on numbers and what I've seen. I've been able to see Marion a few times, actually, and they're the real deal, man. Yeah. They are the real deal, and arguably the toughest conference there is. And mentioning their strength of schedule, if not the best, one of the top 3 strength of schedule on that we'll discuss today. They played St. Francis and Concordia, 2 teams that are in the final 16.
True. So I think they're probably the only team to have 2 wins against teams in the playoffs. And few have 1, but they've got 2.
They played a team that we say got snubbed in Siena Heights.
That's true.
And they played a very, very strong but young program in Indiana Wesleyan. Yeah. And
Indiana Wesleyan had a very good year again, second year. They almost beat St. Francis, who's in the playoffs. So I mean, these are good teams that Marion's beating teams that are left out, just outside. They beat the ones that are in just out.
Yeah.
I mean, the path for Reinhardt, I mean, they've got they have 32 sacks on the year. Reinhardt has to get to the quarterback and stop this running game for Marion. Get into a special teams field position type battle, keep the score low, and just hope maybe 1 or 2 big plays and then get ahead. That's the path for Reinhardt.
I believe the running game, if they could get a running game going, that would be to their advantage. They can score. They've proven that Reinhardt, I'm talking about, can score on the ground. And a lot of times in playoff scenarios, it's the team on offense that can really work a good ground game, which will open up a good passing attack. And so there are, more so than Dickinson State, Morningside, there are some positive things I think you could hang your hat on that Reinhardt does. I just think Marion's better than Morningside. Oh, I let it slip.
Oh, okay.
So there's that.
Okay.
And, Reinhardt against maybe almost anybody else in the field, I give them a little better chance. But I'm going to give them a strong 5% chance to win this game.
A strong 5%?
Reinhardt, yeah. Strong 5%.
A strong 5%.
Okay. I think this is Marion's to lose, and they would just have to absolutely come and lay a goose egg, unlike anything we've seen. So I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm giving them 15% chance.
Whoa.
I think there is. I think Marion, their offense. Sometimes they've won some games against good teams, but they've been low scoring.
What do you guys think?
I think there is some chance. There is hope for those Reinhardt Eagles.
All right, let us know what you think and how that game will go. We got to speed it up a little bit.
Let's do it.
This might be.
But I will take Marion in this one ultimately.
Okay, well, good.
No
okay,
way.
yeah, Marion by.
I'm going to take them by 17.
I got Marion by 21.
You got them by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think.
All right, so here we go.
Still 3 possessions.
Next.
All right.
Kansas Wesleyan. Baker.
Okay.
This is actually going to be, I think, my favorite matchup.
Okay.
Of Saturday.
Why is it your favorite of all these?
It just seems to be classic, and although I don't think these two teams view themselves as rivals, they're both from Missouri. And I'm sorry, Kansas. And
some state pride, maybe. Like who's the best NAIA team in Kansas? A little bit of that.
It could be something like that. But Kansas Wesleyan went to the Final Four last year, and I've heard some of the naysayers. They don't believe in the KCAC, and the It makes me chuckle a little bit because I kind of get it, but they were in the Final Four, and that speaks volumes.
It does.
And yet people still want them to prove it again.
Yeah. And
I think this team would beat that team last year pretty handily.
I did 2 touchdowns at least.
Yeah, I think so. And
just to clarify, they beat Langston. Kansas Wesleyan beat Langston, so they called it an easy draw there, beating a Sooner team. They beat Dickinson State, an easy draw from North Star. So
I think the argument on strength of schedule is going to fall on deaf ears for most of your avid NAIA football followers. But I found it exciting because it's some legacy in Baker. Okay. Baker comes from Heart of America, and that's a great football conference. Benedictine, we talked about in the championship game last year. Evangel.
And up in the north, Grandview.
And then they have the other teams that are good football schools. Every now and then. So it's not like you have perennial losers. The top half are, winners. And that's a good conference. So you have Baker coming in with 2 losses to an undefeated Kansas Wesleyan team. Yeah. And you try to make the strength of schedule argument. Doesn't seem to be a ripe argument to be had because no one respects the KCAC.
Right.
And I'm not, while I'm not saying they're one of the best conferences, I think they're actually decent. They're decent. So nothing to sneeze at. I think Avila, that comes out. I think Sterling. I think Bethel.
All 3 of those are.
And McPherson kind of is growing.
I wouldn't put those teams in the playoffs, so don't understand. We'll be clear on that. But they're competitive teams that are not. Teams. You can't just.
They had winning records, and so if you look if you look at Kansas Wesleyan strength of schedule. They play like Morningside, like some of these other teams that have undefeated records. They just play what's on the schedule, and I think comparatively they had a bit tougher schedule than Morningside. And Sterling, Bethel, Avila all had winning records, and Tabor had a winning record. So you're playing teams that are really trying hard, and it's going to be a good game. Basically blew the doors off of everyone except Avila. Now, Avila
that was such a fluke game on their schedule. Like when you look at it, the scoring.
I don't know. You listen to MidwestSports.net, who really intimately know those programs, and Joey, he picked Avila. He said Avila would do well this year, and he was right. He was right. He was dead on, and they almost upset Kansas Wesleyan. So
if they upset Wesleyan, they almost have a chance to say, hey, we should be in that playoff.
Absolutely,
they'd be 8-2.
But Kansas Wesleyan's offense is unreal. It's unreal.
Yeah.
The numbers that they put up. They're ranked number 2 in how many points they score.
Yep.
And they're ranked number 2 in the offensive production area. So those are just insane numbers. They're numbers that can be comparative to the Morningsides. And obviously they're ranked number 2 because they actually had the production.
Yeah. When your quarterback throws 322 yards per game, you're going to score a lot.
So I don't think you can make the argument, Morningside put up those numbers because they're good, and Kansas Wesleyan put up those numbers because of strength of schedule. I think the strength of schedule favors Kansas, and they still put up those numbers.
I mean, I don't know how you can make that argument because the GPAC has some teams in there that you could say, well, I mean, come on now.
Maybe the only thing I've openly disagreed with John Cooper about is he doesn't give Kansas Wesleyan a shot, I don't think. I mean, I don't think he believes that there's any way that Kansas Wesleyan beats Baker. And I say Kansas Wesleyan beats Baker by 10. So
you're going to pick the Coyotes.
Yeah, I got the Coyotes. Who do you have?
I think the combination of that Kansas Wesleyan offense, and we haven't even talked about a secret weapon this year for Kansas Wesleyan, and that's their defense.
Fantastic.
They have
defense.
one guy
Ranked 12th.
with 18 sacks.
Yeah.
18 by himself.
He has more than most teams.
Exactly. Like no one's talking about this Kansas Wesleyan defense, and when you have a player like that can get to the quarterback, that's going to change the game for Baker. Baker, they also stumbled against William Penn. They were up, and then in the fourth quarter gave up 2 touchdowns to William Penn. That's the really bad loss for them. You put them up against Kansas Wesleyan. Kansas Wesleyan's not going to be down in the fourth quarter, need to come back. They're going to be scoring. They're going to be coming at you on offense, defense. I've got Kansas Wesleyan in this one, but I have them by a touchdown. I have them by 7. I think it'll be close. I think that Baker defense is going to show up, but ultimately
they're good.
That Coyote offense, hats off.
Here's the strength for
Baker. Number 1. I mean, they have the number 1 passing offense.
Baker arguably has one of the toughest strength of schedules. The Heart of America was extremely
tough. They had to play Grandview and Evangel.
They played 6 teams with winning records.
Yeah.
6 teams with winning records. Still had a plus 24 point spread margin.
And yet somehow they lost to William Penn. I don't get it. NAIA, I don't know. It's football. It's just football. It's just football. You just never know.
A head scratcher. But I think you got to allow for a bad day. And that was just a bad day. So I don't hold that against Baker. I just think Kansas Wesleyan is that good.
And Shaq Bradford on the defense.
I am sure.
He's going get ready. That's going to be a fun game to watch for sure.
I'm sure I'm going to take a lot of heat on that pick, but it is what it is.
And that one, when I had my picks, I put that second from the bottom because I have Kansas Wesleyan winning, but I think Baker. Last year Baker they won the first round. They had their first round win.
Who do you have?
I have Kansas Wesleyan, but I'm saying Baker last year. They did surprise everyone. They may do it again. It'll be interesting. If they do it again, then that's going to really change, like you mentioned, some of the respect for that team in the Heart. They may just be the perennial powerhouse there in that Heart of America South.
Yeah.
I guess we got to move on and talk about
we
some
need
of
to
the
move
games.
On because we got to get this
What's next on
over.
On the docket?
Right. Grandview comes in 11-0 against a very strong Concordia out of Michigan team.
What a tough draw
8-2
for Grandview. They played very well all year.
Yeah, Concordia again, one of those that didn't get snubbed.
Yeah.
And maybe could have been, maybe there's an argument that Southeastern could have gotten in over them, but Concordia, a very, very good team.
Yeah.
And I think the conference, maybe strength of schedule comes into play there,
I think so.
although they've lost 2. And Grandview. You want to take Grandview?
Well, yeah, I was going to say they played Baker, and I think that was a 20-3, so 17-point win over Baker, a team that's in the playoffs.
That was also early. Remember?
Okay.
I don't think Baker found themselves at that point.
Grandview played 11 games, more than any other team in these playoffs. But Grandview, they had all their tough games basically from early on and in the middle. Their last 4 or 5 were not against teams with winning records. So they had them in the middle. They had a stumble against Evangel, which for a while was looking like a very good win for them. But they still came out with a win against Evangel. They got the win against Benedictine. That's when we kind of said, okay, maybe we have to start going Grandview is the superior team in the heart. And this Grandview defense, we've been talking about defenses here with Kansas Wesleyan, but this Grandview and Marion, I think this Grandview defense, I think them and Marion are the 2 best defenses in this playoff. What do you think?
There's no doubt. There is no doubt. And it depends, again, on how they reseed these teams after this. I think I'll go ahead and spoil it. I think Grandview wins this one fairly easily. And
I think so too. Just to give you an idea of the Grandview defense, they get up 6 points in their combined in the last 3 games. Even though they were not against the best teams, they still only gave up 6. Like, they're shutting teams down right now. They got a lot of momentum heading in this game. Yep. It's going to be very tough for Concordia to come. A good team.
Out of the 11 games they played, there's a plus 31 point spread. But if you look a little deeper in the numbers, they played, and I think they have the strongest strength of schedule. So I put them at number 1.
Concordia?
No. Grandview. They played 6 teams with winning records, and all of those teams were very, very good. And so it's still, in those 6 games of teams with winning records, they still had a plus 17. So a plus 17 margin of victory. I think that says a lot for having to play, almost 60% of your schedule against teams that are strong.
Sure.
And you're still hanging 17 points on average margin of victory. So that's a pretty interesting piece for me, the way that breaks out for Grandview. So, you could look at Concordia, and they're good, but
they're very good.
They had a tough schedule as well.
Yeah, they were in the Mid-States, Mid-East.
There
are no coaches out there saying, hey,
cakewalk. And I think that's why they got in.
Let's move there. Let's move there to the Mid-East. We'd love to play in there.
No, nobody wants to go and play Concordia, I don't think. No. But
and Concordia, they're in the shadow of a University of Michigan there up in Ann Arbor. I mean, they're literally in the shadow, and they're still. Everyone thinks of Michigan, but all those players that are saying, hey, we're good too. Yeah. And they've played strong. And I just think overall, I don't think the Concordia offense is going to be enough to overcome the Grandview defense.
I'm fighting off very hard. We're going through half of the bracket, and I'm fighting off very, very hard, not giving away my Final Four or my championship game, which I'm pretty adamant about. But I have 2 scenarios. One of those scenarios does have Grandview in the championship game, and I don't see much of a way around it. And that would be Grandview playing. Well, I'm gonna give it away.
Let's save it. Okay.
All right. So we can move on past this. I have Grandview over Concordia by 17.
I have Grandview over Concordia by 14.
So you're kind of staying consistent. I see you've been peeking at my notes. So.
Not.
I don't believe.
What's next?
Let's go to my second favorite matchup, and it's because I like young programs. Kaiser's a young program that's in the tournament, and this other program is in this championship series. They've only been going for 2 years, and that's Ottawa of Arizona. Now, Ottawa of Kansas, they are an extension campus, I guess you would say, but Ottawa of Arizona, I think. Well, they're playing College of Idaho, undefeated, 11-0 from Caldwell, Idaho.
Yep.
And Ottawa's got to travel up there. It's a long trip. You got to fly.
They do. But I think they're used to it. I mean, they're in Arizona. There aren't a lot of NAIA schools out there in Arizona outside of Arizona Christian. They're usually flying around. I think they're prepared to travel.
Well, we saw the only loss that Ottawa had was at home.
Oddly
so they're
enough,
undefeated on the road.
That's true. They're perfect on the road.
But that's a kind of an emotional sweetheart type of feeling I get with Ottawa. Young team. I like their quarterback. I like what they did with their offense. It's a little bit of, kind of that high flying act, a lot of a basketball analogy, a run and gun type, It's just line them up on the line and let's see who can outrun and let's throw a lot of long passes. It's that kind of stuff. Yeah. And they're successful. So McCullough was really ringing up a lot of numbers early on in the season. It settled down as they started playing a little better defenses, but they were still putting up numbers. They went from being like the second in offensive production to the third, and now I didn't check it recently. I should have checked it today, but I think they're in the top 5. They still put up a lot of offensive production numbers, and they've put up a lot of points, but arguably the easiest schedule. The Sooner, I don't want to hate on the Sooner, but I see the point when you hear a lot of the pundits say Sooner is weak. Maybe Frontier, which is College of Idaho, is weaker. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. No, or North Star.
State. I'd pick those 3 if I'm trying to pick one.
They're definitely in the bottom 3. So I think, when you look at it, they had a pretty easy road to get to what should have been an undefeated season. That's Ottawa I'm talking about. And Ottawa of Arizona, I should say. And, not hard to run up your numbers. I just don't think they're. I was high on them, and I don't think they're that good at this point because College of Idaho's numbers look great. The Yotes.
Now I'm going to make a little bit of a case for Ottawa. I'm going to go out on the limb here. Ottawa, the whole thing has been they haven't played anybody good.
All right.
Last game of the year, they're playing a team that hasn't won a game, SAGU. But this SAGU team, 16th in the country in yards per game given up. Ottawa goes in. Scores 33 against that defense. College of Idaho, 17th in the country in yards per game. And we're going to say the Sooner and the Frontier have comparable, maybe weaker schedules, okay? But Ottawa's putting up 33.
I feel you on that.
So if they can do that again, if they go with Christopher Ewens, the running back, and they get against this College of Idaho.
Ewens is tough. I've seen him with my eyeballs. I've actually been in person.
He's strong.
He's
can
the
play.
real deal.
For Ottawa to win, they have to go through Ewens, I think. I know they have the passing attack, but they need to ground bound and get down the field, eat up clock. Don't let that Yotes offense get on the field. Control the clock for 40 minutes in the game.
It's true.
And even though they have that great passing attack, I think it all depends on Ewens. But they have proven they can score 33. I think that they're going to come up a little bit short, the College of Idaho, but I think it's going to be closer than people think. I don't buy into the blowout argument. I don't think we're going to see that.
So here's my take on this really quick.
Okay.
Neither one of these teams gain anything by winning this game. Other than they moved past the first round. I think in history, when you look 2020 and in the hindsight, that both of these teams will probably one of these teams. It doesn't matter who goes to the next round; they're probably going to get torched, and because they're going to play a heavyweight. And if they get torched in the next round, it's like you say, bad teams beat up on each other. So we could expect it to be a close match. And if it is,
it'll be their first, for both of these teams, it's their first time in the playoffs. They're new. They are relatively speaking, the new kids on the block in the playoffs.
But Sooner needs Ottawa to just go in and play outside of their minds.
And I think Frontier needs it too. Over on the College of Idaho side.
That's no doubt there. But I'm just saying, for either one of these conferences to get any respect, they got to move. They're going to actually have to get into the Final Four.
Would you say this game has more to do with the conferences than the teams?
Look at what Kansas Wesleyan did last year. Final Four. and they still don't get respect.
No.
They think at 8-2. I literally heard John Cooper from NAIA F-ball say that Baker was going to, I'm not quoting him, but it was to this, they're going to beat them like a drum. And they're
going to beat Kansas Wesleyan like a drum.
And, wow. So I'm excited to see that.
Someone deliver him a little humble pie because he may need that tomorrow.
Well, I don't know. He's not wrong about much. So that's what really kind of got me questioning the whole thing. But I am still sticking with Kansas Wesleyan. But anyway,
and similarly,
I'm going to pick the Yotes.
I'm going to pick the Yotes too.
Yotes probably by double digits. I'll give them a 10, a plus 10.
You give them plus 10?
Yeah. And it could be even more than that, but safe bet would be plus 10.
I'm saying Yotes by 7. I think it's only one touchdown. Wow. I think that Ottawa offense they're gonna make one pass to get 60 yards, and it'll be a very short time for maybe that team on the field. I think they need Ewans to ground and pound, but I'm going to say 7 points. It'll be a one touchdown win for the Yotes.
Okay. So you get Lindsey Wilson and St. Francis.
This is my favorite game this weekend.
Is it?
I'm very much looking forward to this. You have the Patriots of NAIA football in St. Francis here coming in
Coach
as
Snelly.
the
the
one
legacy.
Of the top, one of them. I think he has more wins than anyone else in college football right now of active coaches.
It truly is kind of like when you get into a playoff scenario.
Yeah.
I think they're one of the teams that you can throw the stats out and go, a coach can almost will his team.
He can.
He's shown that kind of willpower over he's this Jedi.
Yes, yeah.
And
he's going to use the Force to
and if I'm Lindsey Wilson, and I think Lindsey Wilson is a actually better top to bottom team.
I think so.
Talent-wise, the way they have played this year, I think they're better than St. Francis.
I think so too.
But I just can't. I guess I'm going to go right to it, but I just can't bring myself to pick them to beat St. Francis.
You can't.
I can't.
Okay, well, let me tell you why St. Francis will lose this game.
All right.
First off, we've talked about them playing in this mid-states, mid-east, and they had a couple of blunders along the way. They have it's actually a win. Actually, the one that really stuck out to me was Indiana Wesleyan, 31-30. Indiana Wesleyan goes for it on 2. If Indiana Wesleyan converts that's going to be another loss. I think St. Francis also benefited from starting up so high in the poll that when they lost their 2 games, they didn't fall as far as other teams that lost 2 games because they started 4th, 5th, very high. I think they benefited, and they're in here partially because of the poll from the very first preseason poll. That being said, they had a loss to Siena Heights, who's not in the playoffs. We talked about their bubble team, but they're not in there. And they lost to Marion, like everyone else. Then they lost to Marion by 17, 18 points.
Right.
It wasn't a team that's already in the playoffs. Didn't make it. They beat Concordia. And other than that, I think that's their only win against teams in the playoffs. They only have one win against playoff teams. And the rest, 1 and 2.
They played 3.
If I'm taking Concordia, Indiana Wesleyan, Siena Heights, they went 2-1 there, 2-2 overall. So-so. It's a so-so team. I get the Jedi thing, but you go against that Lindsey Wilson team, top to bottom, man, all year long, dominating. You look at teams like Reinhardt, they had a stumble against Kaiser. No, St. Francis is not coming away with the win here. This is going to be Lindsey Wilson all the way by 17 minimum.
Well, St. Francis did very well on the road. They only lost 1 road game. Won the rest. So I don't think going on the road scares them, and they may play just as well on the road as they do at home this year. Maybe they want to play on the road. Sometimes that's an advantage, like we talked about with Ottawa of Arizona. They just assume to play away as they do home because the way the new program works, they're used to it. But I cannot just, it's like betting against Belichick. I just can't do it. Why would you do it?
With the Patriots hat on, of course. He's going to say that.
Of course.
But
well, St. Francis is kind of Morningside, and they are the Patriots of the NAIA. And legacy speaks very loud when it comes to playoff games, not season games. If this was, we were matching up and doing a pregame show and trying to pick one, I probably would pick in the season Lindsey Wilson. Things change. Things just change when it comes to playoffs. And Lindsey Wilson's lack of experience is going to be a factor. And I'm the first to say, I think talent on the field advantage Lindsey Wilson.
Talent from the headsets, you advantage St. Francis?
No. Well, yes, that, but there's that strategy layer, of course, but the experience, the confidence that comes with being there and having done that, the old adage, been there, done that, got the shirt and all that. Yeah. Well, they literally do.
They've got a closet full of NAIA FCS T-shirts.
And you remember, well, I don't want to make that comparison actually, but
I'm going to stick with my pick, Lindsey Wilson by 17.
Whoa!
17.
Wow. Okay.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. All right.
It's on YouTube for those to go back and shove it in my face on Twitter, maybe on Sunday. But I'm sticking with you, Lindsey Wilson. Don't let me down. This is your year.
I'm going with St. Francis by 6.
Close game.
Yeah, it's going to be a close game, no doubt, because it's going to be at Lindsey Wilson.
It is.
But
I will say this for St. Francis: they don't have to travel very far.
No,
it's going to be one of the shorter trips.
Yeah. So. And that's going to. I'm with you. It's my second favorite game of the day. Wow. But I do want to see that, and I'm excited for Lindsey Wilson. Okay. If they can get I think it's a big, even though it's a lesser, historically looking lesser St. Francis team, it still would be a huge win. Yeah. Huge win for that program. So I think it can happen. All right, we got to buzz through these real quick. We got 2 more to do in about 7 minutes. So let's go. Another really cool game, Kaiser Cumberland. These guys are in the same conference, different divisions, but same conference.
That's true. That's a Mid-South. And in the Mid-South, we talked about some of these conferences not getting as much respect. The Mid-South, there's some question marks. We're not really sure, but this Kaiser team also being first time in the playoffs, kind of a new program, second year. I mean, very new. Yep. But they were strong this year. That Kaiser team is no slouch by any means. They beat Southeastern. They beat the teams they had to. And
I'm a Southeastern fan. I kind of like them. I like the way they approach offense, and they're not bad on defense, but they approach. It's a fun offense to watch, and they have a good broadcast, and you're able to watch them quite regularly. And I do, and I like the way they play football. And I've seen Kaiser a little bit. I saw this SEU Kaiser game, and they made the young quarterback for Southeastern look like a rookie.
They did. They made him look young,
which was interesting coming from such a young team in Kaiser. But so that gives me a positive to really respect Kaiser for the way they beat Southeastern. But I just have found it really hard to get on the Kaiser train, and I don't think that is the strongest division to be playing in, and I think they got some handy, easy wins. And I just
You're saying Kaiser got easy wins?
Yeah, I think so. But I know. All right. I did the numbers, and they have a pretty tough strength of schedule.
They do.
But
even
when you add up the numbers, but then. Well, they beat Dort. And they beat them pretty good. And
it was 34-21.
Yeah, that's a good win. That is a
to start the year, no less. Yeah, on the road to start the year, and everyone said, "Okay, this Kaiser team showed up to play."
All right, so I started re-looking at the numbers, and I did the math. How that strength of schedule. I think I don't respect Mid-South yet. And not at least that division
in the Sun,
and
Florida
it's a new division.
It is,
a lot of new teams. I don't know. I just am not buying the hype for whatever reason. It's kind of one of those gut things. And I believe the paper. I believe they're the real deal on paper. But Cumberland's, I think, is just as real. and their numbers are fantastic. Cumberland's comes in with the 10th ranked offense in points per game and number 17 in yards production, offensive production per game, 431.5 yards per game. So that's nothing to sneeze at. And if you contrast that with Kaiser, they're ranked 18th in points per game in what I think is a weaker division. So, and they're ranked 23rd in offensive production. I don't know. I just they don't have any outstanding. They weren't playing any outstanding defenses necessarily.
And I would say this is going to come down to something's got to give. This Kaiser running game and that Cumberland's rush defense. Cumberland's got I think a top 10 rush defense.
Oh yeah.
And Kaiser is maybe top 15, 20 in the country in rushing. They get a lot of yards on the ground. Something's got to give. If Kaiser finds a way to get through there, then
matchup.
It's got to be Kaiser. But
true.
I think that Cumberland's defense holds. I think they stopped that Kaiser run game for probably the first time this year and really puts a stop to it. Kaiser can't get any points. I think it'll be a close one. But
we got to wrap this one up because we got one more, I believe.
I got Cumberland's by 10.
Okay, so you're not on the Kaiser train. It sounded like you were trying to make a case for Kaiser. All right, so
I think they're good, but it's my least confident pick of the 8.
Okay.
This one right here.
I'm gonna take Kaiser by 7. And I'm sorry, Cumberland's by 7.
Okay.
And not Kaiser. Cumberland's by 7. And I think it is going to be a low-scoring game, and probably something like 17-10 is what I imagine. When I look at all this, the way that
seems fair.
Pops out on paper.
These teams.
Yeah. All right, let's hit the last one real quick. Northwestern and St. Xavier, probably maybe my least favorite one of the day, and it has nothing to do with the teams. The Red Raiders are very, very good, and they took their loss against Morningside, who I think everybody's on the train of Morningside's going to run the table. But and that's going to be hard to argue against. I don't know much about St. Xavier. Haven't seen them play.
I can tell you a few things about the St. Xavier team. One is they've had a cupcake schedule all year. They're in the mid-states, but they're in the Midwest, and they have had the easiest. I mean, you look at the teams that they've played. They're playing St. Francis, Illinois, twice, and that's not the St. Francis that is in the playoffs. That's St. Francis, Illinois. But the second time they played them, this last Saturday, 29-27. Yeah. I mean, they barely beat a 3-win team. I'm not sold on this. That their losses are to UW Whitewater. It's D1, University of Wisconsin Whitewater. That one's acceptable, and it was by 8 points. But they played Concordia 35-42, and they played that game close. Concordia's in the playoffs, but they lost to that team that's in the playoffs.
Right.
And even though it's one touchdown, I'm not sold on this St. Xavier team. I think this isn't even going to be close. I think Northwestern runs away with this one. St. Xavier, they've gotten to hide behind a very easy schedule by being in the Midwest of the mid-states of the Mideast, and no doubt Northwestern is going to run away with it.
So I don't know a ton about the St. Xavier program in itself, and I know they're historically respected, but I just know what the numbers are telling me.
And they're
the 8th best production in offense. They 8th best in scoring offense. They're ranked 54th in defense, point production, and worst 54th, and
16 teams.
They're 62nd in the defense production. So I'm kind of with you on the defense. Can they actually stop anybody?
And these are against Robert Morris, not very good teams.
Yeah,
that they're barely beating.
I get it. So good offense, not good defense. In the playoff setting,
I think
you're playing a team like Northwestern. If you don't have good defense, man, you're going to get run out.
Yeah, you just get run over. You literally just get run over.
Yeah. So I think Northwestern can control the time of possession. They can control everything about that game. Yeah. And I give Northwestern the edge by 17. And that's probably me being really safe. It's probably going to be more.
Because I was going to say by 23 Northwestern over St. Xavier. I have very high confidence in this Northwestern pick.
There you go. All right, well, that does it for the tournament brackets. I hope you guys decide to weigh in. We love to talk small college sports and small in every sport, but in football, NAIA is our favorite, and we love to dive in. We'll be watching the games tomorrow, and we'll come back next week and do a Sports Hub report, reviewing the games, and then talking about the reseeds and how that will how that what we think will be played out. It's going to be interesting to see. We're on the record with our picks for the first time ever, and it's going to be interesting to see how close we were, and not only if we were right, but with the point spreads. So, new way to look at the numbers we've kind of invented for ourselves, at least. So that's going to be interesting. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed talking, in your mind at least with us. Feel free to chime in, tell us where we're wrong, where we're right, and we'd love to get give our feedback back to your feedback. So that's a lot of fun to be engaged in your passion. And that's what we're all about here at Champion Sports Network.
Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Go to championsports.network. Go subscribe to us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are. We're going to get you the news from this weekend and all of tomorrow's games.
So for my partner, James Lex, I'm John Cookman, and we've had a blast this last hour talking to you guys. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week.